welcome to another episode of The GameSmith, where in today's episode, we're going to be turning the pillars that we created from our last episode into the ruined pillars of this episode. Now that we've made standard pillars, we should also look at how to create broken or ruined pillars too out of the same material. But because this is rigid plastic, we're going to need some specialized tools to do this. The first tool that we're going to need is just a simple miter box that I got at the dollar store. And all we need to do is just put our plastic in here, set up our guidelines, and then I just have a little hacksaw here, also got from the dollar store, and all we need to do is just cut it. Real simple. You should also make sure that you are using a sturdy workspace, and you can see here that my cutting this plastic tube is moving the miter box around, which is making the cut uneven. Fortunately, we are creating broken pillars, so the uneven edges actually work to our advantage in this particular case. If you have access to more precision tools in your household, I suggest you use them. I don't really keep a lot of tools around, so I just went to the dollar store in order to grab this miter box and this saw. I can use these for other crafts and things like that, but for this particular craft, if you have a better tool, then I suggest you use that. I also would ask, if you have other ideas on how to cut these traveling toothbrush cases better, would you please put those in the comments down below? I'd really like to hear from you. So I'll just pull this apart and then we're done. So you can see that the edges here are rather jagged, and while it does work to our advantage because this is a ruined material, we need to fix those a little bit. Now we need to remove all the jagged cuttings off the edges of our pillars, and I'm going to clean those off with a hobby knife just by dragging it slowly over the ridges and just generally trying to keep my thumb out of the way. I'm not trying to create a pristine edge or remove the fluting from the toothbrush case. I'm just trying to remove those jagged little pieces left over from when I was cutting the tube. Now this particular step isn't absolutely critical. If you want to leave your edges all jagged to help enhance the appearance of the ruined ambiance of the piece, then I suggest you just leave it alone. There are a number of ways to do this, but I'm going to be using expanded polystyrene, commonly known as styrofoam. It falls apart quite easily when you pick at the edges, and I have a lot of this just laying around from packaging that I save. You can cut this with a knife, which will make a mess, but I happen to have a specialized tool for this exact job, an electric foam cutter, and this particular version cost me about $12 from a craft store. Now we're going to want to cut our styrofoam to a specific shape, so I'll just grab a pen here to mark out the shape for me that I want to cut. It doesn't have to be precise since the foam is going to compress when I press it into the pillar anyway. Next, we simply push the styrofoam into the tube. It should fit quite snug, so you don't actually have to glue it in place. Then with our cutting tool, we simply shear off the excess foam, leaving behind the shape that we wanted to fill with our styrofoam. We'll just get rid of these extra foam strings here. Next, we're going to cover the ends of our pillar with tile caulking or bathroom and kitchen caulking. Now I have a tube of this already in use, so I'll put a healthy glob on my pillar and then use a popsicle stick to spread it around to cover in those gaps. It's okay to make it look like a rough surface since this is supposed to be a broken pillar. Now the caulking is rather thick and will hold a shape, so I'm going to use a paper clip to add a little more texture to this broken surface. Once you have a texture you're satisfied with, you'll have to wait a few hours for the caulking to dry. Make sure you check the instructions on that for the brand that you're using. Now I've gone ahead and finished all the pillars, and you can see that they are dry, and now I can paint them or leave them as is. You can see the wonderful detail the caulking captured, so that our plastic toothbrush case looks like a broken pillar. Our last step is to make a decision about how we're going to base this build. We could use cardboard, for example, and just simply attach our pillars to it. However, I think I'm not going to mount these pieces on a base because I like these loose pieces, so I have more versatility on how I use them at my table. I can arrange the fragments in a variety of ways to maximize their functionality and versatility. I can use them as clustered scatter terrain, or I can space them out. I can put them up vertically. I can lay them down on their sides. Excellent scatter terrain. Ultimately, it's up to you whether you mount these fragments or not. In this particular case, I just chose not to. Next, I could paint these pieces to have a marble texture, just as I demonstrated in the previous pillar video. However, I recommend that if you're going to paint them, that you do so after you have cut the plastic travel toothbrush case. Otherwise, if you paint them beforehand, you'll ruin the paint job when you end up cutting it. Lastly, if you actually built this craft, I'd be very interested to find out if you mounted these pieces on a base or not, and what that base includes, so please let me know in the comment section down below. So that was my take on broken pillars. I hope you like what you saw here today, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button. In the description down below, I have some links to my Facebook page and to the website, TheGameSmith.org. And if you stuck around this long, I'm going to tell you that the next episode of The GameSmith is going to be on rocky scatter terrain. I'll see you at the table.